What's good, YouTube? It's your boy Tyrese, man. I'm back at it again with another reaction video, man. Hopefully y'all been enjoying this video recently. Today, man, I got excuse me. Today I got real people who've been abducted by aliens and who have proof. You know what I'm saying? So we gonna check it out. See these stories, man. See what's going on, and yeah, all I ask is, a couple of things. A like on this video, subscribe if you can, and watch 3 to 5 minutes of this video, please. 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 3 to 5 minutes of this video is all I'm really asking for real. But that's it, man. Let's get into it, man.
A quiet night of fishing turned into one of the most chilling alien encounters ever recorded. In Scotland, a forestry worker came across a bizarre metallic craft in the woods and ended up with ripped clothes, strange injuries, and a police report to prove it. And in Italy, a night watchman said he was abducted over a dozen times by towering green-skinned beings. These are real people who were abducted by aliens. In 1973, Charles Hickson and Calvin Parker were fishing in the Pascagoula River in Mississippi when something very strange happened. They said that a glowing craft landed nearby, and then 3 strange figures started floating toward them. The fishers described them as having gray, wrinkled skin, claw-like hands, and no visible necks, so they sounded pretty cute. Well, according to them, the creatures brought them onto the craft, examined them, and then dropped them back off hours later. Shaken, they went straight to the sheriff's office. Deputies left them alone in a room with a hidden recorder running, expecting them to slip up if it was a prank. Well, instead, the recording caught them panicking, genuinely scared, trying to make sense of what had just happened. And that little part of the story is what made police start taking their story more seriously. Calvin was deeply affected. He avoided the spotlight for decades, barely talked about it. Charles spoke more openly and stood by his version until the end of his life. Later, Calvin said that he noticed a strange puncture mark, and even believed that he was contacted again years later. In 1979, Robert Taylor was out on his usual walk through the woods near Livingston, Scotland. He worked in forestry and knew the area pretty well. Well, that morning, he said he came across this large dome-shaped object sitting in a clearing. It had a rough metallic surface and gave off a strong chemically smell, but things got weirder. 2 smaller spheres rolled out toward him. They had spikes and seemed to latch onto his legs. And that's when he blacked out. When he came to, the object was gone. His clothes were ripped, his legs were scratched, and his truck nearby wouldn't start. He ended up walking home, muddy and confused. When he told his boss, the police were called, and they didn't laugh him off. They treated it like a real attack. Investigators found odd marks in the clearing, and Taylor's injuries matched what he said. He wasn't the kind of person who drew attention to himself. He had a steady job, he had a family, a quiet life. People who knew him said he was the last person to make up something like this. What makes this case stand out is how seriously it was taken. It's the only UFO encounter in the UK that launched a police investigation. Wow. And Taylor never changed his story, not once. Pierre Fortunato Zanfretta was working as a night watchman near Genoa, Italy in 1978. During one of his routine patrols one night, he spotted lights near a garden and went to check them out. That's when he said he ran into beings that were nearly 10 feet tall, with green, wrinkled skin and glowing red eyes. When he was found later, he was very confused. He was in shock and couldn't explain how he got where he was, and this was just the beginning. Zanfretta said that the abductions just kept happening, more than a dozen times over 3 years. He claimed the beings were from a planet called Titania, and that they communicated with him through gestures and thoughts. Dozens of people reported seeing strange lights around the time of this first encounter. and investigators found large, odd footprints at the scene as well. Under hypnosis, and even after being given a truth serum, Zanfretta stuck to his story. In 1978, Jan Wolski, a farmer in rural Poland, had an encounter that's still talked about to this day. He was 71 years old, and he was out with his horse-drawn cart when he noticed two odd-looking figures on the road. They looked mostly human, but had greenish skin, slanted eyes, and wore tight one-piece outfits. They didn't speak, but motioned for him to follow them into a strange white object hovering in the woods. Inside, Wolski said they examined him, not in a painful or invasive way, just quiet observation. After that, they let him go. He went straight home and told his family, who then called the police. When people came out to investigate, they found marks on the ground right where he said the craft had been. Wolski didn't make a big deal out of it. He didn't act rattled. He just told his story plainly. People who knew him described him as humble, soft-spoken. He never tried to explain it beyond what he saw. He was just very matter-of-fact. Today, there's even a memorial at the site where it happened. So, whatever actually went on here, it certainly left a lasting impression. A lot of the time we hear about alien abductions in rural areas, big open farmland, forests, but Linda Napolitano's abduction happened right in the middle of New York City. On November 30th of 1989, she said she was taken from her high-rise apartment by a group of gray aliens who floated her through a closed window and up into a waiting craft. And there were witnesses. At least two men working security claimed to have seen a woman being pulled into a glowing object above Manhattan. They didn't know her either. They just described the event in a way that matched Linda's experience. When UFO researcher Bud Hopkins heard about the case, he started working with Linda under hypnosis to help her recall more details. She remembered medical procedures, strange beings, and a feeling of being watched for years. Despite all this attention though, Linda didn't try to profit from her experience. Years later, she even sued over the way her story was portrayed in a Netflix docuseries. Regardless of what you believe though, the multiple witnesses and her consistent story over decades, and the location where it happened, it definitely makes this one interesting. On August 7th of 1968 at Buff Ledge, a summer camp in Vermont, two camp employees, Michael Lapp and Janet Cornell, saw something strange while sitting by the lake. They noticed three bright lights flying in formation, and when one of them came toward them, they blacked out. They didn't think much of it at first, but in the late 70s, Michael started having vivid memories of being aboard a craft and undergoing an examination by non-human beings. Janet later had similar memories after going under hypnosis, and both of their stories seemed to line up pretty well. They described the same ship, the same procedures, and the same strange feelings. The Kirsan Imzyanov abduction claim is one of the most bizarre, not necessarily because of the story itself, but because of who told it. Imzyanov is not some random guy. He was the president of Kamalkia, a republic in Russia. He's also a world-renowned chess player, a chess master actually. And in 1997, he made the shocking claim that he was taken aboard a spaceship by aliens. He said it all started when he was in his Moscow apartment, where suddenly aliens in yellow suits showed up who took him aboard a transparent tube-shaped craft, and then they communicated telepathically and showed him the ship. Afterward, they simply dropped him back off in his apartment. He also said that three of his staff had been looking for him at his apartment during this time and that he was nowhere to be found. He'd tell this story during interviews, as president, and even in front of the Russian parliament, where one politician joked that he might have leaked state secrets to aliens. But I don't know. On one hand, the thing about some of his staff not being able to find him almost sounds like he may have been trying to cover something up, but he couldn't think of anything other than, well, aliens took me, and once it was out of his mouth, he was like, well, there's no going back now. I just gotta stick to this story for the rest of my life, I guess. So there is that. But at the same time, though, the fact that Imzyanov is a well-known figure with no obvious reasons to make up a claim like this, actually, for a politician, it could seriously harm your career, and that kind of adds more credibility. Again, this one is interesting mostly because of who it comes from. In November of 1980, British police officer Alan Godfrey had an encounter that left him questioning everything. He was driving through Todmorden, West Yorkshire, when he saw a huge diamond-shaped object hovering silently above the road. As soon as he spotted the thing, his radio stopped working. Godfrey pulled over and started sketching the object, but after that, everything went blank. When he came to, the object had disappeared, and so had about 15 minutes. Godfrey noticed his boots were scuffed, and he was parked in a slightly different spot as well. At first, the officer kept quiet about the story, but he couldn't shake what happened, and after finally undergoing hypnosis, Godfrey remembered being taken aboard a craft, examined by humanoid beings, and shown strange images. In October of 1978, 20-year-old pilot Frederick Valentich disappeared over Australia's Bass Strait before vanishing. Valentich contacted air traffic control, saying he'd spotted this large metallic object flying above him, mimicking his movements. He described the object as shiny with 4 bright lights. The last thing heard on the transmission was a loud metallic scraping sound, followed by silence. There was a massive search, but they never found any sign of him or his plane. Now, officially, he crashed after getting disoriented, but that final radio call and the strange noise just before the transmission ended, it haunted everyone involved in the search. No one has been able to explain what really happened to Valentich, and his disappearance is still one of the most unsettling UFO-related cases on record. The Hill abduction case is considered the first major UFO encounter in history, and it set the stage for all that followed. In 1961, Barney and Betty Hill were driving through rural New Hampshire when they noticed this strange light in the sky. At first, they thought it was just a plane, but the light seemed to be following them, and then it started hovering above their car. They both saw humanoid figures through the craft's windows before experiencing missing time. Hours of it. When they finally got home, their clothes were torn, their watches had stopped, and they felt that something was very off, but couldn't remember what happened. It wasn't until months later, when they both underwent hypnosis, that they were able to recall what happened, both giving nearly identical accounts of being taken aboard a spacecraft where they were examined by strange beings, and shown a star map that Betty later recreated. Some researchers even believe that map matches the Zeta Reticuli star system, which makes their story even more compelling. To this day, this is one of the most studied and debated UFO abduction cases in history. With all that said, I've been your host, James, and I'll catch you.
Appreciate that, James, again, my boy. Yeah, man. Yeah, I believe aliens are real for sure. I just don't want to, run across one or have to deal with one. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to stay out the way. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to stay out the way. I'm chilling. I don't want no dealings with no aliens, nothing like that. But yeah, man. Thank y'all for coming through again. Your boy, Tyrese. Like this is Blur. Reactions, vlogs. Dropping 80 videos. Pretty rough, but we getting there. So, catch y'all next one, man. Love y'all. Peace.